Never heard of the Sawtooth Mountains? Well, neither had I until about a year ago, but after seeing a couple pictures, I knew I was going to Idaho as soon as possible. Idaho is the only western state without a national park, but having spent a week in the Sawtooths, I can confidently say this is a hiker's paradise whose trails, lakes, and peaks rival the West's greatest national parks. Follow along as I hike and hydrate my way through the top 5 day hikes in the Sawtooths. Number 5, Sawtooth Lake. At under 10 miles and 2,000 feet of elevation gain, this is the least challenging hike on this list, which makes it great value to reach this iconic lake. The first 3.5 miles are gradual and take you to Alpine Lake, which is nice and green, but overshadowed by the impressiveness of Sawtooth Lake just a mile further up the trail. I followed the trail that parallels the eastern shore of the lake for a bit, but the best viewpoint was from the slope at the northern end of the lake. From there, you can see the entire lake and its pristine blue water, with Mount Reagan towering directly behind. Number 4, Barren Divide. The hike to Barren Divide starts from the Redfish Inlet Trailhead, and the best way to get there is to take the boat shuttle from the lodge. With the mist coming off the water surface, it was definitely not a burden to be on the lake early in the morning. From the trailhead, it's 7.5 miles and about 3,000 feet to one of the 5 best viewpoints in the Sawtooths. The first 3.5 miles are flat as you follow Redfish Lake Creek up the valley. Then the climbing starts, but the trail remains gradual and non-technical. Be sure to take a quick break at Alpine Lake, which is a popular stop for backpackers. From Alpine Lake, it's a 1.5 mile sprint up to the Barren Divide. Approaching the pass, the outstanding view over barren lakes appears out of nowhere. Serrated peaks surround the basin on 3 sides. No better place to stop for a snack. Number 3, Goat Lake. At about 8 miles, this is the shortest hike on the list, but it is not the easiest due to the short but very steep section parallel to Goat Falls. Hiking poles are very useful here since the terrain is loose. After the steep section, Goat Lake is only a couple hundred yards further. I got lucky. It was a windless morning, so the surrounding cliffs were perfectly reflected in the water surface. I followed the trail along the eastern edge of the lake for 1/10 of a mile. But, similar to Sawtooth Lake, I ended up on the northern side of the lake to enjoy a snack, touch the water, and take a little break. If it was any warmer, I would have definitely been tempted to take a swim. Number 2, Alice-Toxaway Loop. At 19 miles, the Alice-Toxaway Loop is by far the longest hike on this list. Most people do this hike over 2 or even 3 days, but it is possible to do in 1 day if you get an early start and keep a good pace. The entire loop took me 9 hours. If you love lakes, there is no better hike than this. Going clockwise, the trail takes you past Pettit Lake, Alice Lake, Twin Lakes, Toxaway Lake, and Farley Lake. Not to mention a number of smaller, unnamed lakes, each as secluded and pristine as the next. Despite all the lakes, the true prize of the loop is found at its highest point, the view from the pass overlooking Twin Lakes. I was focused on keeping a good pace, but I could not help but spend 20 minutes on the pass, soaking in the views. Number 1, Thompson Peak. It is hardly surprising that the ascent to the tallest peak in the Sawtooth Range is also the most challenging but epic hike on this list. The first 4 miles on Alpine Way are nice and easy, following a shallow ridge. Then, it's a steep climb up to the unnamed lake. The lake is beautifully secluded, encased by peaks on 3 sides, the tallest of which is Thompson Peak. Most people turn around at the lake, and they should. The hike to the lake is very rewarding on its own, and the climb from the lake to the peak can be dangerous and should not be underestimated. To continue to the peak, you need good weather conditions, since the peak is very exposed. An offline map. There is no discernible trail and no reliable trail markings or cairns. Having an offline map is a must. Experience hiking talus fields and Class 3 scrambles. And lastly, the energy, time, and water to complete the additional 1,700 feet of elevation up to the peak. The round trip from the lake to the top took me over 3.5 hours. Reaching the peak is an unforgettable and exhilarating experience. The peak is tight and exposed, so my adrenaline was pumping as I soaked in all 360 degrees of the view and caught my breath. Looking east, the lake from which you came is 1,700 feet directly below. Further east is Sawtooth Valley in the small town of Stanley. The hundreds of Sawtooth peaks populate the other 3 directions, all of which you technically look down upon from Thompson Peak. And that is it for my top 5 hikes in the Sawtooths. I have put more helpful information in the description, but please let me know if you have any more questions.
Reporting live from the field. Thanks for watching. Bye.